1, 2, 1, 2. Apologies, folks, for the delay, but I can promise you we were all good to go. It's just one of them things. And it may come on. If it does come on, we'll make room for it as well. But it sort of changes the running order a wee bit. First thing that I wanted to do was just to welcome everybody. So it's once again absolutely amazing. We went for the bigger venue, and look around you again. We're still packed along the walls, and 600 or 700 seats this time round, as opposed to 350, 400 the last time. So you're looking at 1,000 people out here to say something's not right. So fair play to everybody for making the effort to come out, first of all. I think the second thing we have to do is obviously we've got our political representatives here from different parties, independents. We have a collection. We've got, and I want to specifically call out our 4 TDs over here. Tomás Pringle, first of all, Pearse, Doherty, and Pádraig McLaughlin, and Joe McHugh. So for the 4 of them turning up, let's give them a round of applause there. Then after that, we have got our councillors here, and again, just back to the same thing, we have to welcome the people, regardless of party, regardless of affiliation, that came here tonight and is prepared to turn around and talk to you about the People's Document. So once again, to them, round of applause, please. And then last but not least, we have people that are putting their head above the parapet here and want to take on the job of councillor, and one who wants to take on the job of an MEP here as well. And, fair play to them. They're coming along, and it's one thing to sit in the corner and girn about it. It's another thing to go along and have a shot at it and do something about it. So for the candidates, and you'll meet them later on, a round of applause, please. Thanks. So this was meant to be on the screen here, the People's Document, but I think it's important that we just remind everybody of what's here. This is our first time presenting what is the final People's Document. What you've had up to that point in the Green was our best effort at it. It was called Rev 1, if you remember, because Rev 0 was what we put together. Rev 1 was after we bounced it off some sounding boards that are out there. Some of you are here tonight. That was Rev 1 going in there, which made it a step closer to what it should be again. And then finally, it went from a 2-page document to a 3-page document when you guys got your hands on it. So that's that's what we have, and that's what you have in your hands here now. But I want to take a spin through it again, just for everybody's benefit. Okay. So based on the 4 principles, the first one is the property, and we're saying rebuilt like for like at no cost to the homeowner and to current standards. That just looks absolutely an amazing place to be, and yet it's a goddamn basic right. The second one is the process. It's an end-to-end scheme by the state with a self-built opt-out available. And the third one is people in support, no one left behind, prioritisation yes, exclusion no, proper and timely supports for those affected throughout. And then the fourth one is prevention, never allowed to happen again. Follow the science, ensure the proper standards, enforcement and accountability. Okay. So again, the detail, and we got stung with the devil in the detail in the previous 2 schemes. It's our turn to put some detail in there and see how others react to that. But the detail that's in here is your detail as per the People's Document. So what we're saying for the first one, the property that's built like for like into current standards, we're saying homes and surrounding structures, garages, walls, septic tanks are rebuilt like for like regardless of size, to modern standards in line with the government and EU environmental policies. As per existing DCB scheme, homeowner can opt to retain current style heating system. That's a right in the current system anyway. That would need to be carried through. PC sums made available for irrecoverable finishes, and we're saying akin to that of a loss adjuster in an insurance claim. So we do know that people will have spent a lot of money. It could be wooden floors, it could be other things that you just can't lift and take to your new house, your new rebuilt house. So there has to be a PC sum put in there that at least goes some way. PC is partial contribution. So that's what you'd have in a loss adjuster situation as well. So that's what we have put in there. And then C is any consequential damages to property during construction to be made good. That could be driveways, pavements, gardens, straightforward. Flexibility afforded to make house plan changes so long as it's at no additional cost to the state. Rebuild, including foundations, to be the default remediation option, always following the science. Meanwhile, if in doubt, take it out, must apply. I saw Paul Dunlop somewhere coming through there, so he's the man to tell you all about the science end of things. But we have to be following science, and that's not happening. Special arrangements we put in place for semi-detached homes that ensures post the scheme they don't share a structure with a non-remediated home, because it couldn't be of the same value if you're still stuck onto something that has cracks on it, even though the home's not yours. Homes to be fully mortgageable, insurable, and restored to full market value post the scheme. Partially built properties to be included in the scheme up to the current stage of completion. That was one came through from you guys on the floor. And there's plenty of them, partly built. They qualify for nothing at the minute. You're not expecting a new house in place of them, but you are expecting at least the value of what's spent on it. Homes built in Northern Ireland with defective blocks whose owners are working and paying taxes in the Republic of Ireland should be allowed in the DCB scheme. That came from the Greenian that night as well. And benefits of the new DCB scheme, including the no cost to the homeowner, has to be extended retrospectively to previous DCB scheme participants. And that's not new, because the enhanced scheme also includes retrospective application to the old 9010 scheme. So they can't really argue not to do that. The process then, end-to-end scheme by the state with self-build opt-out available. This is particularly, you don't even have to be pension age where you're saying, I've gone through this, I've built my home already, and I just don't feel like going through that whole process again or where to start, particularly now with price variation and everything else that goes on there, and the lack of contractors. So this is the end-to-end scheme, which is parity with Pyrite, the Pyrite remediation scheme in Leinster. That's what they did. So we're saying here the state body, that'd be the Housing Agency stroke Pyrite Remediation Board, to take on the homeowner project start to finish, including all planning, construction and certification. So it's a hands-off approach if you want to do it. Why are we entitled to that? Because that's no different to what was shown as an entitlement to the people down the country in Leinster. Why would it be any different here? The contract remains between the state and the homeowner, not the contractor. Again, that came from the floor the last time round. And I am assuming what the concern there would be that if a contractor went belly up or there was issues, the likes of the home bond stuff, we know that they don't stand over anything. So, it would be with the state, and that would be the ask here. And if there's any issue, it's the state that addresses it. Possible to upsize or upspec a home at a price agreed in advance. Okay, speaks for itself there. Self-build option available to homeowners at equivalent budget to the state's allowance for that home, and that's valued via the raw SCSI as per insurance process, with suitable allowances for professional fees, demolition and disposal, utilities and PC allowances as above. For self-build option, upfront costs to be provided to kickstart the project with timely stage payments right to final completion. Documentation process to be streamlined for maximum efficiency. That's a critically important one. And anybody that's taking on their own project at the minute knows that the finances are lagging the stage at what you are in the build. And how do you bridge that? So then we went looking, and you had Pádraig Sharkey and the team that went off looking then about 0% bridging loans, etc. Again, everything's like pushing water uphill. There's nothing that comes easy in this scheme. But what we're asking here is to use common sense the next time round and ensure that enough money is pumped in to the homeowner at the start to prime the financing of that house right to the end. There's a 10% at the end anyway that's held off. So if there's anything to be concerned about, that money's still there. But you don't have the money up front. And again, it comes to similar things like alternative accommodation, if you want to do up your garage, or whatever the case may be, or buy a mobile home. Where do you start with the money? And then there's the red tape, what we just talked about there, where we've got, I think Paddy talked about an example there in one of the videos where, again, there are requirements around the validation of it, like bank transfers, that's not even mentioned in advance. So you can't make up rules as you go along and make things more difficult for people in this situation of what they need to be. And that's what we refer to there with the streamlining of the process, okay? Emergency repair works to be funded while homeowners wait their turn in the queue. Also, essential to provide a highly efficient rapid response system to process and execute on any emergency repair works. At the moment, we know there's houses out there that would need emergency repair works done, but they're not taking them on. Why? Because that comes out of your overall allocation in your budget. If you're going to be over 400,000 or 420, and there's plenty, about 40% of the homes, that's what they're now doing. So you're left in a situation there where people are living in dangerous properties because it's good money after bad to do anything about it, and yet you could be compromising the health and safety of your family. You should not have to make them decisions. An insurance solution to be facilitated by government for DCB properties while waiting the DCB scheme solution. So you may be in a queue, and that's natural. Not everybody's going to get their homes done in year 1 or year 2 or year 3, even with the amount of stuff that's there. But in the meantime, what do? You've already declared to the insurance companies, because you're obliged to do it, that you have got defective concrete blocks. You shouldn't be sitting exposed with basically zero insurance while the state eventually gets round to tackling your home. So the state needs to come up with something that offers something practical to people in that scenario, and that's what we're asking for there. Estates and developments to be taken as a job lot where possible to ensure a particular multi-unit site is not akin to a building site for many years to come, while respecting an individual's right to opt out. State to plan and facilitate the many multi-unit development challenges, and there will be challenges, okay? But it's not right that you would be living in an estate and you get your house done, and it's 10 years before a neighbour of yours does their house, and you're been basically living in an estate where there's lorries and diggers and everything else coming in and out. It needs to be thought out, and I think in fairness, it's a lot more financially savvy to take these things on a geographical basis anyway, and work that stuff out as you go. Try and take out as much of that estate in the one go as you possibly can, and let people get back to a normal life, living in a normal estate. Then the DCB scheme eligibility to be based on the science, lab test results, and not a visual damage threshold. That damage threshold has to go. Do we all agree? Yes. Right. Just a couple of bits on the why that's important again for the political representatives here. So if you're in a situation, and we'll come on later, that you should have transfer of eligibility, that the eligibility of the property is based on the property and not the owner, okay? It means that if you then had a property that was showing cracks but not necessarily meeting the priority list at this time, and you wanted to move on with your life to somewhere else, or you want to emigrate or do whatever you want to do, that you could do that, and the house is worth something if you sell it then, because the grant's going to go with it, as opposed to at the minute, no transfer of eligibility. If you sell the house, it's unlikely to even reach the value of the site because you have the demolition cost to put on top of that. So that's why it's important that people are released from this prison of a damage threshold. The results come back to say they've defective concrete blocks, but they can't move on. Okay, so that's what that's about. And then families inheriting a DCB property or gifted a DCB property are equally eligible regards the DCB scheme. And there was a lot of queries around that, so we thought we'd include that. And then full plan devised that oversees the transition from the existing to the new proposed scheme that doesn't further hold up the limited progress to date while still ensuring the benefits from the new scheme are not lost. There's a lot in these words because you give us a lot of stuff to fit in, but we've tried to make it as slick as we can at the same time there. And we know we had issues there and still have issues between the 90-10 and to the enhanced scheme. So, it would be naive to think there wouldn't be further issues then if we went to a scheme based on the People's Document. A non-state body with experience in the operational logistics of such a scheme to assist on the on-ground planning and roll out to prevent all the ongoing delays and frustrations of the past and to date. And you all know how much frustration there is with the current scheme. So really what we're saying there is we need to gear everything up in parallel. There's no point in having, contractors if you don't have the engineers, the architects, the quantity surveyors, blah, blah, blah. There's no point in having you're going into a development, but we don't have a plan that addresses the fact that one might be a holiday home, one might be a rental. We don't have a plan that addresses that. So therefore, we're sort of picking out homes and doing the house to the left-hand side, but not the house to the right-hand side, like, which we're going to have to come back at some point and do anyway. So logistically, wipe it out when it's there. There has to be a better way, and our firm belief is that it has to involve some outfit in the private sector that comes in, takes this on, knows how to scale it up, knows how to make it happen. It just feels like since this first 90-10 scheme started, we've been at a council level, and I'll just say it, at a council level and at a department level, we've been sort of feeling our way. Now, there's two ways looking at that. One may say that that was something that they're learning as they go. Others may say that that was very much a deliberate strategy that ensured minimal drawdown of funds from the coffers, and I'd be inclined to go with the second one. So into the people in support, no one left behind. Prioritisation, yes. Exclusion, no. Proper and timely supports for those affected throughout, right? So all DCB properties must be included. No exceptions or exclusions will exist. This includes principal private residences, the rental properties, the holiday homes, the community and commercial properties. Okay. A priority system will ensure that worst properties and most vulnerable homeowners will be dealt with first, but within an overall allocation that recognises and progresses all categories in parallel. And what we're trying to say there is, we know, like, if we went, just as a sample here, and I hadn't planned this, but just, so can I have a show of hands for those that would say, my principal private residence and just my private principal residence is affected? What would that show of hands look like? Okay, so that lets you see you're probably talking about 60-70% at least there. So can I also then, for those that would have one buy-to-let that's affected, if you don't mind, could you do the same thing, please? Right? There's probably some of you very shy at this point. But the point that I want to make here is that I think when we swallow the big pill of the principal private residences, and we look then at some of the other things that I know may be difficult at a government level to swallow, I don't believe it's going to be the huge amount of extra finance that they may think. And we need to do an exercise, I think we're all agreed on that, an exercise around what does that actually look like, okay, and size it accordingly. But what we would believe is that all of these categories should be moving in parallel, and that the principal private residence, as you can see, 70% of it, so whatever resources and whatever budget was being put into in year one, you know, you're going to move, what, 20-30% of them as best you can. Then the smaller sectors, then the likes of the buy-to-let, again, move them. If you're into the commercial or you're into the community centres, etc., you know, move them all in parallel. It can't be a case that it takes 10 years and we get all the principal private residences done and everything else is parked. It has to be no different to other government departments. You know, a government and departments is basically, you know, different pockets on the one pair of trousers. You know, you have to move them all, and they all have to be given budgets, and you move them along on probably a worst first basis at least to get the most dangerous ones done, and then on some sort of another agreed process after that. But it can't be a case that we have got people absolutely excluded. So that's why we're saying prioritisation yes, but exclusion no. The DCB scheme eligibility is based on the property, not the owner. We touched on that earlier. Eligibility transfers with the property if the owner decides to sell. Equally, an owner is free to sell on completion of works without penalty, just the same as a non-DCB homeowner. State to consider the buyback of a DCB home where exceptional circumstances prevents the homeowner from seeing the project through. That could be elderly or vulnerable. Homeowners must not be compelled to live in a DCB home just to remain eligible for the scheme. The right to freedom of movement is a human right, and somebody pointed that out to us, and we wrote that down because that's a fair point. You know, you can't be compelled to live in a home just to remain eligible. You know, you're eligible, that was it. The property's eligible, okay? And you should be free to move on and live somewhere else if you want, but that property is still your property that you bought and paid for. You have every right to have it fixed. Side-by-side building option to rebuild as close as is feasible to defective homes instead of on the same spot, to be facilitated where family circumstances dictate. And we had a couple of people talk to that quite emotionally at the last meeting in the Greenon, and I thought they made their points very well, so it's included in there. Proper and timely homeowner-centred support systems to be established for affected homeowners on an end-to-end basis. This should be based on the Redress Focus Group support hub model. By affected homeowners, for affected homeowners. Okay? And Roisin over here will know as much about that as anybody. Also, medical and psychological services to be made available to all affected. Okay? Also requested here, and it's, you know, and the learnings of this could be of use to the state in years to come, a HSE study on respiratory health for DCB families. The amount of people is talking about, you know, black mould in their kitchens, in their bedrooms, and they don't have an option other than to stick it out. They'll maybe move around rooms and leave the worst rooms and go to better rooms until they're equally bad. And we just don't have answers for these people. And, you know, at some point in time, the question has to be asked, was there long-term effects of that? And a HSE study that would explore that, I think, should be mandatory. Banks to play a role in supporting their impacted customers through the rebuild period and address clauses in the mortgage contracts that are impacted by the presence of deleterious materials. At the minute, there's still a contradiction there between what you're asked to do, because, you know, if you're going to do anything to that building that basically leaves it as a building site with no building on it, technically you've compromised the terms of that mortgage, and yet it's in the bank's interest to make sure you do that, because that leaves them with a restored asset value as opposed to a DCB asset value. So that circle needs to be squared. High-level DCB steering committee with proportionate homeowner representation. No more homeowner liaison. Homeowner representation to be established that oversees the effectiveness of the DCB scheme rollout against aggressive targets and agreed deliverables with timeframes. And we had suggested in here, just a number we threw at it, 1,000 units per annum minimum target, with all scheme and system components geared up to that. Okay, so there's no point in putting a number in place without the systems that deliver that in place. All the cog wheels need to interconnect and need to spit out that number, whatever it is, in terms of units each year. Where was it? Alternative accommodation to be made available to displaced families due to DCB, to be done on a community basis that ensures minimal disruption at our parochial level, e.g. local schools. RTB rent rate of 18 months to be pledged with no red tape, as per the pirate remediation scheme in Leinster. This can be used for the purchase of a mobile home or do up a garage to make it temporarily habitable. It must be made available in advance to allow preparation for the displaced family. And that's difficult at the minute because nothing's organised in a logical fashion. And that's why we need to be involved at homeowner, the previous point there, homeowners representation, so that logic can be brought to the table of the decision makers. And then people-centred, focused in all aspects of the scheme design and rollout, including a balanced appeal system, open, honest, transparent and highly effective. We have an appeal system at the minute for the enhanced scheme, and I think most people doesn't know where it is. It was promised and it's written about, but it's not there. And then the final one of the people's document is number 4. The fourth principle, which is prevention, never allowed to happen again. Follow the science, ensure proper standards, enforcement and accountability. All efforts made to learn from lessons that this crisis has exposed. That's for the benefit of the homeowners, obviously, and our children and grandchildren, that they never have to go through this again, but also for the state, that they're not out billions on what was, in our firm belief, pure negligence. Celtic Tiger times, where it was, you know, build them cheap and stack them high. Just didn't realise perhaps the consequences. But nevertheless, the governance was not there. The clarity around the standards, etc. There's a whole pile of work to be done on that. And again, we've got the likes of the Paul Dunlops involved in that. The proper national standards, ahead of myself there, informed through the latest international papers on defective concrete due to deleterious materials. Ensure that all building products comply with their appropriate EN standards. Proper research undertaken on homes as they are demolished to understand the different stages of deterioration, e.g. of inner rising walls, etc., as well as how weak entire structures are. Now, we'd have seen some videos of a cousin in Cairn, was one example of it, and he's a digger driver himself, and he went in with a fairly heavy Hitachi, and as he braced the roof, and as he lifted the roof up off the wall ties, the walls just collapsed in on it, right? And he's not the kind of boy that's too easy shook up, but he was shook up. And, you know, nobody's seeing that or understanding that or even investigating that. Then we talk about following the science. You know, I know from conversations with John O'Connor 3 years ago that, and we had Noel McGann, who came up with a brilliant idea, one of the engineers that many of you will have used. He was prepared to work with them to go in, for example, and, you know, you'll get rising walls on the external perimeter, no problem. But what about inside, you know, in the hallway of your house? Nobody sees what's going on in there. And everything has just come in. A digger takes the whole lot out and it's in a heap. And lessons learned are all gone and all binned into the one heap of rubble. So they didn't take it on, despite what they said they would do. And for that reason, there's been no learnings. So that's why we're firmly saying, you know, stuff you guys. If in doubt, take it out. You didn't do the science, you didn't do the research, you've done nothing else. We're not playing Russian roulette with any of this going forward. And that's the firm position. So, the next one there, proper system of governance that positively confirms compliance to these standards, independent of the owner and with third-party verifications, not reliant on self-regulation, which is hard to believe that that's where we ended up, but that's where we ended up. Insurers, engineers, NSAI, banks, architects, estate agents, SEAI, all require proper regulation and enforcement. Proper accountability with extensive, explicit consequences for non-compliance. This is where we're into the accountability part. And prevention doesn't happen if there isn't accountability, so that is critically important. We're saying a full review of the role of the state in allowing this DCB crisis to happen in the first place. You know, they're not just stories, they're facts about how long this has been going on. There's facts about people that were told that were in positions to do stuff about it and done nothing about it. And that needs uncovered. And if it's not uncovered, all you're doing is allowing the same thing to happen again. And this principle here is about prevention. So that's why it has to happen. Full review of the role of the state in the treatment of its affected homeowners while seeking redress. Like, we all know how this has felt in this journey. It's been absolutely scandalous, you know, from pensioners to young couples, young kids. The way we have been treated, you know, and no disrespect to dogs, but you wouldn't treat a dog that way. And every time that we went to Dublin with proper hand-on heart, genuine efforts to try and make it better, all we got was the lip service on it. But there was nothing genuine in their efforts to do anything about it. And what they really did was to announce a multi-billion euro scheme, but put the obstacles in place to ensure that only a trickle of houses were getting put through. And the facts speak for themselves. And we've also added in there, you know, because we had some brave tussles with some of the leading figures in these relevant departments, but a full review into the likelihood of professional negligence by key figures within the relevant departments. Like IS 465 was put together while you still had European standards that were ignored in this. You know, that all has to be flushed out yet. And it is quite possible that there will be individuals, as well as just blaming the state, where there were individuals here complicit in that, and what we ended up was costing the state billions, and that's where it'll end up. But, you know, professional negligence shouldn't be ruled out here for some of them key figures that presided over the disaster that we've got. And then a full judicial review or public inquiry to ensure lessons learned are on legal footing. And, you know, there's plenty of chat about judicial reviews. It was interesting to see there as well that that public inquiry seem to be backed as well from EU. And actually, we're going to get Joe Morgan to come up and give us a few words on that after a while as well. But anyway, that's the people's document, your document. I take it Stephen didn't get anywhere with the projector. He's probably gone home now. He's left us with it. But anyway, that's a shame because we had some really good stuff, and you know the team put in a massive amount of effort to get it right, and it was really, really good. But unfortunately, that's just not going to be the case. So anyway, what we had sort of planned here now in terms of feedback, I suppose, by the political representatives, was to kind of kick off there with their own views. And what we probably should do to make it fair, because the letters went out inviting them to come along as a councillor, inviting them to come along as a TD, whatever the case may be. There would have been separate letters then out to the headquarters of the parties, and I think it's only fair so that when you're talking, people understand whether you're talking on behalf of yourself only or whether you're talking on behalf of your party. Okay, so I will ask that just for clarity. We do have 4, like I said here. We have got noticeable absences. Okay. I'm not sure anybody noticed. But what we had planned to do was it was a message we got through to that effect, and maybe you have it there, Lisa, have you?
Okay, so one of my jobs this last while was to chase down the politicians, and I have responses. So from Charlie McConalogue yesterday. This is, quote, "I am at an Agricultural and Fisheries Council meeting in Brussels, so I am not able to be there on Tuesday evening at the meeting. Those Fianna Fáil representatives who are in attendance will be able to represent me as well. Thanks, Charlie." So hence it is really, and I said, will that be the official Fianna Fáil position on the People's Document? And to that, I've had no response. So I think it is absolutely clear that when people are speaking, it needs to be clear whether there is the party response or whether it is their personal response. And coming to Senator Niall Blaney, who's also, This is short and sweet. I won't be around tomorrow night. I'm on the campaign trail, Niall.
And you can see why I want credit given, and rightly so, to the people that were man enough or woman enough to be here tonight. And I think that has to be given credit. So, again, the slide show's letting us down here, but Sligo Pirate Action Group is represented by Jenny and Tomás here. Where are you? Down in here. Okay. Fair play to them. There was actually a video as well from Stephen Rutledge, who's the chair of the Sligo Pirate Action Group, but we're not going to see that for obvious reasons there. Also, we have got Michael McLaughlin here from the Labour end of things. Is that right? Where's our Michael? Here. Right, Michael, how are you doing? We have got Brian O'Boyle, an MEP candidate who made it all the way up from Dublin. And you're where? I was talking to you earlier, so I know you're here, but it's okay. Good man, Paul. Or Brian, sorry. And then, we have a letter there from Luke Ming Flanagan. If you don't mind reading that out, I think it's worthwhile as well. And again, a guy that put a lot of effort into this. again, these boys down here will verify all that.
Thanks, Michael. So I have a letter here from Luke Ming. He's absolutely gutted that he couldn't be here tonight. Everybody knows that the man has fought tooth and nail for us and has been absolutely integral to the progress that we've been making in Europe, along with other people. Joe Morgan, I have to single you out because that man is the engine behind what's going on in Europe as well. But without Luke Ming's and his team's support, we just would not be where we are now. So I thought it was just really important that he had a voice at the meeting tonight. And as I say, he's gutted. He writes, firstly, my apologies for not being able to attend, but unfortunately I have a medical appointment with my daughter, which involves an overnight stay in Brussels. I would wholeheartedly support everything contained in the People's Document. It's asking for something that is totally reasonable. Any government that claims to represent the people would have no issue making such commitments. Anything less would be a dereliction of duty. The document also mirrors my many recommendations, or the many recommendations of the Petitions Committee, which visited Donegal in November last. I look forward to the response from the department on this, as we do all, as well as the response from the Commission. It unambiguously shows what's wrong with the current scheme. It shows how lax government has been and continues to be at the root of the problem. It basically echoes what you've been saying for years, vindication written down in black and white. The demand for a public inquiry is something which must be followed through by the government. Those responsible must be held to account. So as you correctly say in your document, this should be never allowed to happen again. This can only be achieved through meaningful regulatory governance, and it must be proactive as opposed to reactive, and also properly funded. Myself and my office will continue to be available to help until this ordeal ends. Whether it's organising visits to meet relevant commission or organising public events, anything you need. It's easy work. It's easy working with people who are so professional. If only our government were half as professional, then this fiasco would have never occurred in the first place. Luke Ming Flanagan.
Okay, so Brian, do you want to say a couple of words since you're here? Come ahead. Well,
I wasn't expecting it before. Here you go, take that first. Yeah, look, I'm from People Before Profit, and we were asked about a week ago, would we endorse the principles? And as the candidate, I'm actually living in Sligo, although you can hear him from Dublin, we're more than happy. I mean, it's a very small thing to say that you'll stand behind people when they're facing a crisis. I mean, that should be the basic bare minimum, I think, that any political representative should want to say. I've spoken to a few people on the walk in, and it says our homes and our hearts are broken, but your will is not broken. Your spirit is not broken. Your determination is not broken. And I think, this is part of the housing crisis. This country is one of the richest countries, and I'll speak to Joe, one of the richest countries in the world. We brought in 24 billion euros from corporations this year. And the reason why you have to be so professional, diligent, impressive actually, is precisely because they act in bad faith. So I want to act in good faith. I've had my own tragedy through the housing crisis myself. My mother actually committed suicide after losing her own home. And I just want to let you know that it's, I came up here to say I stand with people like you in your time of need, but also in a situation where we want to build people-powered movements in this country so nobody has to go through the kind of crisis you face. Thanks very much.
One way to shut me up. Okay, so I think Michael McLaughlin was coming down. Did you want to say a word?
Yeah, sure.
You did? Okay.
Thanks very much. I think we were in a race from Dublin, actually, Brian. But I want to know what time you left and what way you came. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for inviting me along to this meeting this evening. I'm speaking both personally and on behalf of a party. But personally first, For those of you who don't know me first, I suppose, my name is Michael McLaughlin. I'm County Secretary of the Labour Party, and I'm also a local election candidate in Letterkenny. Personally, I'm delighted to be here to publicly express my support for you. I'm lucky. The house I live in doesn't have any issues. But this affects me because it affects you, my friends, my family, and the people of Donegal. That's why I went on the marches with you. And that's why my plight in politics is your issues. I was delighted to take a motion to the National Labour Party conference on Saturday, and even happier that it went out live on RTE, because it shows how important this crisis is and that I'm committed to helping you find a solution. That solution has to be fair. It has to be just. But most importantly, it has to be equal to that was offered in other parts of this country. Donegal is not going to be left behind. Thank you. That motion is now part of the Labour Party policy. And I'm delighted to be able to share with you today a letter I got. Now you'll have to bear with me because it's on my phone. I hadn't time. I was on the car and it came through. But here it is. So if you bear with me for a second, here is the response from the Parliamentary Party. Thank you for bringing the proposals from the People's Document regarding the defective concrete crisis to our attention. I also wish to confirm that the proposals were sent to our elected representatives in the Dáil and the Seanad. As Secretary of the Labour Party in Donegal, I am writing to you in my capacity as Political Director of the Labour Party in Leinster House. Firstly, it is important to note that we welcome this extensive document, which contains a significant number of detailed principles that the campaigners for 100% redress have collated. To implement these requires a wide-ranging change of policy from this government and a much more committed approach than we have seen to date from the Minister for Housing. Secondly, as you will know, in opposition, it's hard to make a direct impact. But we need to force the government parties, and principally the Department of Housing, in changing their flawed, enhanced, defective concrete blocks grand scheme. And we're going to raise it in the Dáil. Further, at our party conference in Dublin just this weekend, a motion from the Donegal branch was passed unanimously, expressly committing our party to the need for 100% redress for those affected and for a fair, timely and workable solution through an end-to-end scheme equal to those previously offered for homes affected by pyrite. And this is confirmed as Labour Party policy. The Labour Party agrees that there should be 100% redress and that families should not be left with shortfalls and that it should be an end-to-end scheme administered by the state. With regards to next steps, and he goes on with a lot of other things, but just to sum up, 1, the party conference adopted a motion this weekend committing to 100% redress, and this is confirmed as Labour Party policy. 2, they will seek to raise these issues outlined at the next opportunities in the Oireachtas. 3, they want to arrange a meeting with the representatives of the People's Document to get a deeper understanding of the detailed principles and where the shortfalls that affect you are. And this can be arranged either in person or online. And 4, they then want to take that to the Minister of Housing and move it forward from then. They're looking forward to hearing from you. I'm looking forward to continue to work for you. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Michael. And, you know, we did reach out to the Stock Dems as well. Cian O'Callaghan, very keen to work with us on through the document. Now, they said that they didn't get a study in enough, that they're just going to carte blanche say, yeah, everything on there we're supporting, but they are definitely prepared to work with us, and they're talking like a sort of a, and I'm seeing this theme coming through, even with some of the independents there as well. And, you know, you've got Independent Ireland who's trying to pull a band of independents together, etc., but talking to a few of them as well, they're keen to see what can be done here. And why is this important? It's important because when it comes to votes in the Dáil, that we have got as many people backing this as possible. Okay, so that's why we have to stay apolitical here, and we have to ensure that there is the same opportunity given to what I would call the pro-People's Document parties to go make things happen. And that's the key message tonight. The pro-People Party is what we're after here, and we just want to make sure that it's not seen just as a Donegal thing, because we know we have 14 or 15 different counties affected now at this stage. Sligo's not even on the scheme yet. So, everything's been pushed down the road, but, there's a lot of the drive comes out of Donegal, a lot of the drive comes out of what's here tonight. Now, it's good to see as well in Mayo, Martina Hegarty and the Mayo Pirate Action Group down there is having a parallel to this. So that's good. And, it makes it easier then to buy the support from other counties, because Donegal on its own is never going to make this happen on their own. We may be the main driver in it, I think that's fair to say, but we know when it comes to dial votes that we need more than Donegal. So that's really why it's important that the likes of Michael and everybody that's here tonight, we pull on that DCB jersey, if you like, that ensures that anybody in any quarter of Ireland that has defective concrete blocks will be treated on the back of a People's Document, and that's our goal. So we're kind of moving there into, that was the out-of-county type stuff, and out-of-county and the Labour part, Michael's in there because I know he was speaking on behalf of Labour as well, so there's more of a inter-county level. But in the in-power party TDs, then we don't have Charlie and we don't have Niall from a sender perspective, so we'll move on. I have to thank Joe McHugh for coming along here. And Joe, are you okay to say a few words at this point? Okay. Round of applause there, please. Thank you.
Thanks, Michael. You asked for two things there. You asked who we would be speaking on behalf of, and secondly, our view on the document. So in relation to the first one, as I've lost the Fine Gael parliamentary whip, I'm outside the Fine Gael parliamentary party, so I'm speaking as a Donegal TD and speaking on behalf of myself, but obviously speaking on behalf of the constituents who elected me in the last general election. Secondly, Michael, your question in relation to my view on the document, I think it's a very good document. I think it's a bottom-up document. It's coming from the people and obviously coming from the grassroots, and I think it's different to where we started out. And I think it's important to set the context of the journey that all of you as activists have been on as well, and you don't need me to tell you. But the 90-10 scheme wasn't a scheme that anybody wanted, neither at a political level or at an activist level. And myself and the late Bernard McGuinness had a very, very long chat about it, because it started off as a 70-30 scheme, and eventually we ended up in a 90-10 space. We agreed to it reluctantly because we felt we needed a scheme. We agreed to it reluctantly because we felt it was important to get things started. But the most important thing about the 90-10 scheme was we accepted it in good faith. We accepted it in good faith that it was a 90-10 scheme. But everybody knows the history. That scheme was butchered at an official level. There's no other word for it. It was butchered, and it became, as you know, Michael, and you talked at length about it, it became a 60-40 scheme. So that context of where this document is at, it's a people's document compared to a top-down scheme. It didn't work. So then I suppose we're back at a false dawn with a scheme that's not working either for so many people. And you mentioned frustration earlier as well, Michael. I did not vote for that scheme because I felt it didn't go far enough. I felt it was the opportunity after the massive campaign, after the massive demonstrations, the strong voice, the solidarity, and there was a solidarity around the country for what you were trying to achieve as a campaign group in Donegal, but there was a solidarity around the country, and we felt we were making the necessary progress. There were two things that I wanted in that scheme. One was transfer of eligibility, and the other was penalty-free downsizing. And I know penalty-free downsizing is not in this document, but there's no need for it in this document because you're looking for like rebuild, because that doesn't become an issue anymore. But on those 2 points been missing, I voted against the scheme. And I didn't take that decision lightly, because once you vote against your government party, or once against your party in government, you lose that influence within government, and I knew that was the road ahead of me as well. But I felt in consciousness I couldn't support it. And 6 months after that decision, I did get a call from Leo Vracker, the current Taoiseach, for the current Taoiseach, as we stand here tonight. And I rang Michael, and I hope you don't mind me saying this, Michael. I rang Michael and I asked Michael, what do we need to achieve here for me to go back into the party? Because that's what Leah was asking me. My 6 months banishment, or whatever you want to call it, was up. And Michael did mention transfer of eligibility and penalty-free downsizing. That's what I asked for. I would have come back into the party fold. Anyway, long story short, that didn't happen, and I'm still outside the party fold. I worked very closely with the initial campaign group, in particular, as Seán owns here tonight, and Eileen Doherty, yourself, Michael, and other people. I feel a continued sense of responsibility that we need to get to a better place on this scheme. I sense the frustration, not just in this room here tonight, but from the people I speak to, and not just the frustration, but also the anxiety. And I think this has, not even I know, and I raised it in the Dáil 3 weeks ago, this has to be raised to a level within government that has seriousness marked at the top of the page. And that means an interdepartmental approach, with a Taoiseach-led approach, with you as equal stakeholders, as activists, sitting at that table with parity of esteem. And having gone through these different processes and looked at what's worked and what hasn't worked, the one thing that's missing is accountability. And you said it here again tonight, Michael. We've not accepted the first one reluctantly, and we felt the second scheme was going to be a scheme that we could work with, but the devil was in the detail, and at official level, that has been a problem. So you have a people's document here with a lot of information in it, and I think if this is to be taken seriously, and this is my opinion, and it's easy for me to say, yeah, this is a great document, and I accept this document as an individual TD. Well, I'm absolutely happy to take this document at face level, and in fact, this weekend, and I know my colleague Councillor Johnny McGuinness has done the same, we've sent it off to the new Fine Gael leader, who will be potentially the incoming Taoiseach in a couple of weeks' time, and that is on his desk. So I'm happy to work with your group here tonight, the group here tonight, to see, can we advance this? I'm not in the Fine Gael party, but I'm happy to use my influence as a TD for Donegal in the remaining time I have, because I'm not running for election again, but I feel duty-bound and a sense of responsibility. And the reason why I'm here tonight is to continue to work with you to see, can we make progress, to move you out of this place, which is wrong. And that is my message to you tonight, and I will continue to work with you and the people that are affected.
Okay, thanks, Joe. Tomás.
Thanks very much. Thanks for the invitation to the meeting tonight, and it's great to see such a big crowd here. And I think the change of venue is obviously well warranted when you see the crowd that's turned up here, and it's vitally important. And I would just like to say start off by saying that I fully endorse the People's Document, and I will. I will do what I can within my power to make sure that it is delivered on as well, because I think that's vitally important. It's a document that nobody in this room should have had to draw up. I think we should have all have been expecting and demanding that our government would actually work on behalf of the people, and they haven't done that. And that's the reality of the situation. You know, and we're facing into the third bite of the cherry to actually try and get this right. And I think that's a sad reflection. That's a sad reflection on Irish society. It's a sad reflection on our country. And it's a sad reflection on our political system that has allowed that to happen. And you'll all hear the political system will talk about, oh, it wasn't us, it was the permanent government that did it. The permanent government are there at the will of the political system. The political system, the permanent government is a perfect cop-out for the political system. I've been in politics for about 20 years now, and what you always hear is you hear the permanent government don't allow things to happen, or you hear Europe doesn't allow things to happen. And that's what stops us. It's never politicians that don't allow things to happen. Politicians want everything to happen, but they just don't be allowed to do it, and that's the problem. And look, we've outlined, and Joe outlined perfectly, we had the 90-10 scheme. It didn't work. It was a failure. Everybody in this room knew it wasn't going to work. It wasn't going to do the job, and that was an absolute disaster. Then we come up with the Darragh O'Brien scheme, which is slightly better, but still an absolute disaster because it doesn't benefit people, it doesn't help people, and that's the problem. We're going to have to go back a third time to do it, and that's going to be it. And I believe, and I have no faith in this government that they will sort this out. And there's whatever's left, 10 months, 9 months, 11 months, or whatever it is, they are not going to sort it out, and they're not going to be interested in sorting it out either. So. The reality is that it comes to the next government to do that, and what we all have to do, and I can say to everybody here in this room now, that if I am re-elected, I intend to hope to be part of a government or part of formation of government or part of talks of that, and I will make the People's Document a core part of anything that I would do in relation to that, and that's vitally important. And you have other political parties here that are making those pledges. You in this room have to hold them accountable to that, and you have to hold them responsible for what they say and making sure that that's done. And that's just the sad part of it, but that's what the reality of the situation. But in doing that, you can make sure that there is a document and there is a scheme, a third bite of the cherry that comes out that actually meets the needs of the people, and that's what's vitally important. And if we do that, we will have done a great service to everybody, and you will have done a great service for yourselves and for the future and for the rest of this country as well. So fair play to you. Thanks very much for putting this on, and onwards and upwards as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Tomás. So, Pádraig or Pearse, whichever way you want to do it.
Well, first of all, the message has been sent to the government tonight. The government representatives in Donegal have said again and again that this is a good scheme, this is a good outcome. Well, the answer from this turnout tonight is what a load of absolute nonsense. I was in the public, I was watching the public gallery in the Dáil in July 2022. Michael Doherty was up there, Lisa Hone, and the other campaigners, and I'll never forget it because they had acted in absolute good faith. They, along with all the other campaigners here at the top table and others in this room, mobilised 20,000 people to be in the streets of Dublin in October 2021, a day that none of us will ever forget. And here he was, months later, Michael particularly, and the team, Lisa and the team, and the distraught in his face, and the Perspex screens, and they were banging the screens. The government rammed through the legislation and would not accept even reasonable amendments. I mean, what they were offering was not 100% redress, it was another grant scheme, but they wouldn't even accept reasonable amendments. They rammed it through. And we knew what was going to come. We knew that we were going to have another failed grant scheme. Almost a year later, finally they rolled out the scheme. And those of us who are public representatives have been dealing with the implications of it. There's not a day of my life, and as a lot of people in this room that I will be working with here tonight, there's not a day of my life that I am not dealing with a family who are distraught. There is literally a black cloud over this county, and it's devastating people's lives, destroying families, destroying relationships. Some people have taken their lives. And these families are dealing with the reality that yet again, they are tens of thousands of euros short. They are dealing with impossible bureaucracy. They're having to get a square peg into a round hole. Every day of my life, I'm dealing with that reality. And I said to Michael and the campaigners, I said, this reminds me of 2020, 2021 all over again. There's this just dread on the landscape, and people then rose up. So I cannot thank the leading campaigners for, can you imagine the pressure on all of their shoulders that they've taken? And here they are again, leading the way, putting forward solutions. So I'm asking you to give a thunderous round of applause for these leaders here in this table tonight.
Okay, thanks very, very much. Yeah, that wasn't in the script, but much appreciated.
So, what we need, folks, is not another grand scheme. And the message from this room tonight is we need 100% redress for our people in Donegal, in Mayo, in Sligo, in Clare, and in Limerick. Our people on the west of Ireland are victims of the greed, of the shambolic lack of oversight of building that happened in this state, particularly in the Celtic Tiger era. And our people in the west of Ireland deserve exactly the same as the 3,000 plus families in Dublin and North Leinster. And that is... So, we demand equality. Nothing more, nothing less, just equality of treatment. So if you're a person who lives in a pyrite home in Dublin, or a pyrite home in the west of Ireland, or a pyrrhotite home here in Donegal, and thank you, Paul Dunlop. I think Paul's at the back of the room, the brilliant man who's done the research on this. If you live in a pyrrhotite home in Donegal, a pyrite home, or if you're in a defective apartment, if you're a victim, you deserve 100% redress. So tonight, the message from us in Sinn Féin is, if we're fortunate enough to be in government, we will deliver equality. We will deliver 100% redress. It will be end to end. It'll be delivered by the Housing Agency, like the scheme in Dublin. We'll reconstitute the Pirate Resolution Board. It'll be the Defective Buildings Board. And we will build like for like, no grants, 100% redress. That's our message tonight. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Pádraig. Thank you. Okay, Pearse, I don't know if you wanted or planned to say anything there. Or?
I don't really, because, well, first of all, thank you, and thank you everybody for turning up. And some people in Dublin probably thought that you have gone away, but you have sent a very clear message that you aren't going away and that Donegal isn't going to be forgotten. And I want to commend not only just the leaders, but every single one of you for making sure that this issue, and you're standing up for yourselves, but also for your neighbours and other people who can't be here, because we know there's thousands upon thousands of people affected. As Pádraig says, not just about defective block, not just about houses that are unstable and unsuitable and unsafe, but also families, communities that are broken as a result of this. I said to Michael, there's no need for me to speak, because when Pádraig speaks, he doesn't just speak for himself. He doesn't just speak for me. When we speak on behalf of all of Sinn Féin. So this is the message from Mary Lou McDonald right down. What Pádraig has spelled out to you is exactly what we want to deliver. We've looked at this document. We know the energy, the effort that's gone into it. I looked earlier on when the hands went up in the air of people whose principal private residence, your family home, is affected. And my commitment to you, if we're in government, and if I'm Minister for Finance and that's the job I want to do, I'm going to make sure that the money's there, that your house will be built 100% end to end, and you won't have to build it yourself. We will also get rid of this nonsense that you have to build it to some time back 20 years ago. We'll be built to modern standards. We will make availability for PC sums. We will provide the support on the ground to support you and your families. And we will allow people who want a self-build option to avail of that option as well. So look, our commitment is very clear. I'm happy to answer any questions or anything later on. I've been privileged as an elected representative in this county to be to go into some of your houses. Some people here. Today I was dealing with two families who have defective block. They're not from Inishowen or Letterkenny or Lifford or Milford. They're actually from Gweedore. This is right across the area, and more homes, more and more families are being wrecked and devastated as a result of this here. We've heard all the stories. We know that every single one of you carries a unique story, unique stories in relation to how this is affecting you and your family. It is our job as your representatives, as your Teachta messengers of the people, to do right by you. Look, I'm convinced that this government isn't going to budge. I am just convinced that, like, you know, and I commend Joe for breaking the party whip. That's not an easy thing. But the biggest thing that I took away from that is that his party was willing to sacrifice Joe for what? Penalty-free downsizing that wasn't costing the state a penny. It was cruel and vindictive to vote against that measure when it was put forward, and that just shows you that they're not for budging. We need a new government that is committed to what you are saying, to 100% redress. We can only tell you from our party, from the top right down to all of our candidates and local councillors, we speak with one voice, and we are with you on this issue.
Thank you, Pearse. Okay, so I was started off with the out-of-county responses that we talked about. Then we had our in-power TDs, opposition TDs. So the in-power councillors then. So again, we just to be conscious of time here, right? So I would ask that just one councillor would talk regards on behalf of your colleagues. So if you get me drift there. And I would probably want to start off with a councillor here who is also the chair of the DCB steering committee and has a lot of this detail and works this detail every day. So Martin McDermott, please.
Thank you, Michael. Are you all right down here? Do you want me to come up there? Mightn't see me down here. Thanks, Michael, and thanks to all your team there for the work that you do, and it's great to see you back, and it's great to see yourself back, and to the Teachta here and the TDs here. It's great to see you, and my own colleagues down the front. Look, firstly, I want to say that the Fianna Fáil councillors had sent back word that they are in favour of this. I'm speaking on behalf of Martin McDermott here, because Martin McDermott is a defective block house as well. I have a family and two girls. That house has to be demolished in the next couple of months. So I fully endorse this document, Michael, and the team. I fully endorse it, and I'll do everything in my power through the Defective Concrete Block Committee to deliver on what we can. But I also, you know, we are a county defective block team that only can do so much. And there's a lot of work that we're doing with meeting department officials, working with Lisa and her team is on our committee as well, to try to fix some of the stumbling blocks that we're having within the scheme at the minute. And there's a lot of those. There's a number of ones. Side-by-side build, for instance, for families, particular families that have disabled children that would need to stay in their own home until their house is remediated. That is something I feel very strongly about, and something that I will really keep pushing to make sure that happens. I think that's vitally important for anybody that has disabled children within their house or elderly. The ancillary grants situation at the minute is not attainable. It's something that needs to change. People need to be able to get their 15,000 before they pay that out. No one has 15,000 lying in a bank account that they can go and buy a mobile home with. It's just not doable. And I think that is something, working with the Chief Executive of the Council and working with the department, that we can deliver on, that we can get changed. And there's lots of other situations in relation to planning. And the one major issue that I have again brought up with the department, and we're hoping as a Defective Concrete Block Committee to meet the department again within the next 2 weeks. They've promised to meet us again, and we did bring it up at the last meeting that we had with them, is the damage threshold. There is absolute no sense in the way that they're delivering the damage threshold. I have families coming to me every day, families that have a report in their hand stating that their house is defective, and yet no, they can't get on the scheme. I explained to a department official, it's like going to the hospital and being told that you need a heart bypass, and coming back down to your own doctor and going into them and him saying to you, Ashley, your grand, don't worry about it, go home and sit down and leave it for 6 months or 2 years. It is not attainable when someone has a report that states that their house is defective and that they can't get on a scheme. That is something that we have to change, and that is something that we have to push to change. As a committee, and we have some of the members here, the Vice Chair, Councillor Doherty here, Councillor McGuinness, Councillor Crossan is all on that committee, Councillor Monagle, Councillor Crossan and Councillor Farn is all on that committee, and we will try and make those changes. But the problem is a lot of these changes will have to happen at a higher level, and we are pushing to do that. And I see people in this room that I deal with on a daily basis, like these guys here, and try our best, our very best, to get and get them through the scheme as it sits. It's not easy, and it's not 100% for everyone, absolutely not. And we've said that from day one, it's not. But we will try our best. We will try our best to deliver and to get those issues that we're dealing with now, because over the next year or so, we're going to have to deal with the scheme that's in front of us. We won't have it changed within the next number of months. And, as a Defective Concrete Block Committee and as Chair, I promise that I'll do everything that I can to deliver on that. I want to fully endorse this document and promise that we will do whatever we can to make this happen. Thank you, Michael.
Thanks, Martin. Okay, so again, regards the in-power parties, someone from Fine Gael, Johnny, who wants to speak?
Good evening, everyone. Hopefully you can see me here. I'll just start off, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the many campaigners, that's yourselves. You've fought for many years to further the cause of the MICA-affected families of Donegal and other counties. Pyrite, mica, all the deleterious materials. I'm sorry. I will get to that in a moment. I will have my full backing. I would also like to pay tribute to the committee up here at the top table for their endless work. It's just unbelievable. And from the bottom of my heart, as an affected homeowner, I'd like to thank you very much for all your efforts. I first learnt of MICA many years ago. Around 2010, my late father was representing some families affected, and whilst there was very few at that time, those that were affected, it was a massive threat to their homes and to their families, as it is today. And here we are 12, 14 years later, and still we're fighting for a proper scheme. We're still loving the same houses. Yeah. I would like to pledge my full support to the cause of the many affected homeowners in Donegal. I've always supported the objectives of the movement, as my family, like many others, has been affected by MICA. I can also attest to the full support that my late father gave to the many families. I've been lobbying for change and progress since my late father's death, and I pledge to continue to support you in any way that I can going forward. We as a family have travelled to demonstrations. We've sponsored transport to the protest in Dublin, which I also attended. I've spoken on behalf of the cause in front of the Oireachtas members in Leinster House. I've travelled as part of DCB cross-party delegations from the county to the Housing Department. I've tried my very best to effect some progress since being co-opted, but unfortunately we have yet to achieve a scheme that we truly can be referred to as being 100% redress. The precedent for such a scheme has already been set when the pyrite remediation scheme was launched in 2013. The duplicity of the housing agency in Dublin now is nothing short of scandalous. One can't but wonder what the scheme would look like if it had been needed in and around the Greater Dublin area. I take great issue with the fact that we have been not afforded equality of governance from the silent suits that rule from within the department offices. The people that have thwarted the progress of the scheme should hang their heads in shame. This cause should never have become a political cause. The people of Donegal should have been afforded a proper scheme long before now. I have lobbied recently for immediate progress that can be delivered without any additional cost to the Exchequer. It's been touched on before tonight, penalty-free downsizing, an immediate increase in the 10% cap, which can take place after a 1-year anniversary of the scheme, which is 13th of July. Side-by-side building provision where the needs of the families are clearly defined as being exceptional. A Section 47 planning application would facilitate this, as per confirmation by a planner today in an earlier meeting. Ancillary monies, as Martin alluded to, should be available up front for the many families who simply haven't the wherewithal to purchase a mobile home or alternative accommodation in advance of their rebuild. The removal of VAT from any payments relating to the rebuilding of their affected homes, immediate access for a delegation from the Defective Concrete Blocks Committee to discuss any progress that we can achieve immediately. And finally, I'd just like to pledge my full support to the People's Document and promise you that I'll do everything in my power to help achieve everything that's set out therein. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Johnny. Okay, so, you can start to see time could completely run away with us here, and we're going to have to not go down the road of every councillor having to speak here, but I do appreciate you obviously coming here. But I think what we do need to do now is we've got candidates here as well. I want to make room for, because these are the candidates I referred to earlier that wants to, say what they've got to say, what they see as the issues and what they hope to achieve. So there is that. But I would just ask so we've got Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael, they're represented. Independent-wise, who have we got that would like to speak? Nicholas.
Thank you very much. Yeah, we'll keep it short, there's no doubt about it. My God, many's a concert I've done on here, but there's never a crowd like this. Listen, folks, I'm just here tonight. Thank you very much for the invitation to come here tonight. And I can't say it enough. Without people that make things happen, and that's these people over here, they have driven this here forward. I'm speaking on behalf of the independent councillors in Donegal County Council. Just to name a few, Tom Conahan in Donegal Town, daughter, house had to be tumbled. My own family members, houses had to be fixed up, and some of them has to come down. But the one man here sitting in front of me here tonight, we have Representative Kevin Bradley from Letterkenny and Councillor Pádraig McGarvey from Milford. Pádraig is telling me that his house is coming down on Friday. So we know what it's like to have the troubles that everybody else, we're all in the one boat in this here. But Pádraig said to me the day on the phone when I was talking to him, and I did talk to all our independent reps, I didn't talk to them all. I talked to most of the reps, the independents in Donegal, and the word they said, without these people, it wouldn't have happened. And I agree with what Pádraig McLaughlin says. Without these people, this would not have happened. We've got a redress scheme that is here at the present minute, and it is certainly short of the 100% redress. But I'm going to have to say, and it's far from me to cross over lines, but there's there's two people that I've talked to greatly regarding the MICA redress. Defective concrete blocks, the 100% redress, and call it what we all know what we're talking about here. But if I got into a pickle with it, there's one person or two people who went to. One was Martin McDermott, because from day one, when we did set up a MICA redress scheme in Donegal County Council back in 2019 in June, and Martin McDermott took on the leadership of that, and I'd have to say that he did. But for another one that I got a lot of information from help, and because he's in the game himself, is Paul Canning. And those two people, I know we have worked. Michael McLaughlin over here from Falcara here tonight. And all I can say, I'm sorry, they're saying we're going to make it short, but all I can say to you tonight, that the independent grouping within the Donegal County Council, of which I'm whip of, not us all, there's 7 of us, I'm going to pledge 100% support for the document for 100% redress. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, so again, so who have I missed regards the council? Now, Michael already spoke, I think, Martin, but if that's okay. Yeah, well, do you need to hear from the Sinn Féin councillors, guys, as well? You've got the 2 men up here. Right, okay, sold.
I'd just like to thank the committee here tonight for the invite and thank them for all the good work that they've done. It's been already alluded to tonight, the excellent work that's been done by the committee in organising this campaign, and all of you who have attended all of the protests, put the issue out there, and it's got people to sit up and take notice of it, and it's been great to be part of all of that there. We, the 10 councillors in Donegal County Council and Sinn Féin, have regularly raised these issues within the council. We fully support what has been said here tonight from our 2 national leaders, Pádraig and Pearse, in relation to the document and the 100% redress that has been promised. And we will continue to promote this on Donegal County Council. All of us have people and families who are affected by defective concrete blocks. I have a son whose house is suffering because of it, and others among us have the same. Some of our councillors have houses that are affected by defective concrete blocks. Our candidates have all signed up to supporting the 100% redress. And the only way we are going to get 100% redress is returning these guys and enough Sinn Féin TDs to be the next government of this country. Because the 2 governments, and I have to say this, the 2 parties that have been in government, Joe's party and Fine Gael with the first scheme was a disaster. And then Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil and the Greens got together and come up with the second scheme, which has turned out to be another disaster. There is no way are them parties going to change. The only way we are going to get 100% redress is if we put Sinn Féin in government and put Sinn Féin councillors in Donegal County Council who will help promote and push as best as we can for you to get equality, justice and 100% redress. I'm really delighted to be here tonight.
Thank you, thank you. Okay, so we are going to move on here now to some of the candidates that have put their head above the parapet and want to go try and make a difference, which they're more than entitled to do. And I'll ask Tomás Devine, first of all, of the 100% Redress Party. Okay.
Cheers, Michael. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I'm Seán Devine, Chair of the 100% Redress Party. Firstly, I'd like to thank Michael and the team for drawing up the People's Document. On behalf of the 100% Redress Party, I can confirm that we endorse the People's Document as it fits in with our ethos of no cap, no exclusions and no cost. Although we would like to see the scheme extended to all those living in affected properties in the north of Ireland. Hopefully by now you're aware that the 100% Redress Party is not a single issue party, but the People's Document is all about defective blocks. So tonight I'm going to focus on the unprecedented humanitarian crisis that we're all facing. We're regularly asked why we formed the 100% Redress Party. The answer is that the political class, as represented by the people on the panel tonight, have let us down. The majority of our elected representatives should be hanging their heads in shame at their handling of this crisis. For not acting sooner, for continuing to ignore our suffering, for not caring about our safety, and for choosing twice now not to give us a genuine 100% redress scheme. We formed a 100% redress party for every person in this room tonight who's anxious about their futures and those of their families, for the parents putting their children to bed in fear of their safety, for the elderly who believe they never again live in a safe home, for the people who purchased their properties in good faith yet are excluded from the scheme, for the vulnerable, for those facing financial ruin. Yes, we formed this party for you, the people. We need to have a voice for the people, by the people. Most of our councillors have failed us, and to them I say, shame on you. Yet before the local elections in June, they'll all come knocking on your doors looking for your votes. The 100% Redress Party will no longer tolerate the say nothing, do nothing culture of our council. Instead, we need a can-do, will-do approach, some creative thinking with emphasis on solving problems and not in creating more. Over 10 years into this crisis, and the council has no emergency plans in place, no modular homes available for families during rebuilds, no assistance for our vulnerable, and no support for homeowners going through this trauma. In fact, all we've seen from the council is red tape, delays upon delays, incompetence, and a failure to challenge the housing department on our behalf. Again, I say, shame on you. The 100% Redress Party is fully committed to supporting victims and is determined that all our voices will be heard. If elected, our councillors will be hounding every party to ensure that the People's Document is delivered. We will demand that the council provides modular homes to the victims of this crisis. We will insist that the council establishes a task force to carry out risk assessments and emergency repairs. We will require supports to be put in place to help those suffering undue stress who have nowhere to turn to. The job of a councillor is to hold the council executive to account, and yet we learn there's no planning permission for the quarry at the heart of this crisis, no testing, no enforcement of regulations, and no response from the majority of our councillors. And to cap it all, the council rewarded the quarry by becoming their biggest client. Once again, I say shame on you. The majority of our councillors knew there was a problem and chose to ignore it. So here we are today with our families' health deteriorating day by day, just like our homes. Ask yourself, if they deserve your vote, what will change? The status quo is not working, so we need now to make a stand and make that change that is desperately needed. The 100% Redress Party will fight for justice and equality and investigate the procedures needed for a judicial review to overturn the flawed IS 465. We'll fight for an end-to-end scheme for all those wishing to avail of it. We'll protect future generations by ensuring this will never happen again. What will happen to our communities when our essential buildings start to crumble? Shops, creches, community centres, GA clubs, to name a few. No property should be excluded. Politics has been a dirty word in Donegal for far too long. You all heard the rumours and the allegations. The McLaughlin report on alleged planning corruption must be published. Why has this not been released? So please... So please come on board and support us. We need your help as we need your vote. We only have 5 years to save Donegal. If you think that's over dramatic, look back 5 years and see how much things worse have got. That's our protest. Your protest must be at the ballot box. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. We have Mary T. of Onto.
Thank you very much, folks. My name's Mary T Sweeney. I'm here on behalf of Pádraig Devine TD. One TD in the Dáil, and he's done an awful lot in opposition. The only sign of opposition. For me, I have to say, I've been here since the beginning, before Aintu was even formed. And I looked at the same TDs sitting at the top table. And then I was working as a registered auctioneer valuer, and I would ask them, what are you going to do to stop the people that are going in today buying houses and getting mortgages for life? And I know those houses have mica, and those days it was called mica. And you know that they have mica, and they're getting mortgages on properties that shouldn't be sold. And today I'm still meeting people in Letterkenny in denial that their house has mica or defective concrete blocks. That's the reality of the cover-up that's gone on here. It's been too much and too long, with no respect for the victims, the people sitting in this room, and the many people that are still, for their mental health, living in denial. Living in denial because they don't want to address it. The number of people that have stressfully gone through the junior cert and the leaving cert with children and trying to live in denial that has impacted their children. Not just the parents who are fighting and squabbling, like they've told me, but even the children have been left out here and forgotten, that have to go through the normal mundane things in life. And I thank this committee, of course, and the children and the partners behind them that have allowed them to represent you, the people here today present. My speech has changed from what I was going to say because I've listened to the politics that have been talked here tonight. Because I'm in the peculiar position of having half a house with mica because I bought an old bungalow and put on an extension. So I'm probably one of the lucky ones that I can live in the bit that's okay if the rest falls down and we can make amends. The reality is, for many, they have spent thousands of money on extra mortgages trying to stop the dampness coming through to their clothes that they can't even hang in the wardrobes because they're so damp. One girl alone, 10,000, and that was at the last election 4 years ago, just to dry line the whole inside of her house. And guess what? Donegal County Council owned the other half of her house, and they wouldn't pay a penny towards it. And this is the reality. When Donegal County Council put the signs on the houses up the long lane saying, the problem here is insulation, drawing in dampness. Have they ever apologised to the people for making statements like that? I have never heard the apologies. We need to know what has failed. I expect my TDs to come here today and tell me these are the failures in the system that has allowed this to happen. We are going to address those failures and then we're going to stop it and change and get you 100%. Otherwise, you're going back to the same rhetoric and there's never going to be 100% redress. We have 6 councillors potentially standing across this county as well. Councillors, local councillors are important because I need to remind you people that your local councillor elects the Seanad members in great numbers. They have the right to elect members of the Seanad. And remember, the members of the Seanad pass the law. They can send it back into the Dáil if they're not happy. And they're still your public representatives. And don't forget that. And if you can, after the MICA candidates, vote into number 2.
Thank you. Okay. Again, I'm going to have to rush it on, and I know I have to apologise to some people that will not have had an opportunity to speak tonight, but we're just going to push on because we really need to get to the questions, and maybe that will allow some people to come in then that didn't speak. But have we got the mic set ready down there? Angela and Kelly. So we've one mic on the go. We should have had 2. All right, Kelly, another one there. Okay, so what we're going to do is we'll take from side about here, and we'll probably spend about 20 minutes, half an hour on this if we need to. But whenever somebody has their hand up, and Angela's there, then somebody else should be ready with Kelly, okay? So it keeps it slick. All right, so over on this side, first of all, somebody with their hand up.
Thank you. Joy Beard from the 100% Redress Party. I didn't actually hear Sinn Féin endorsing the document in its entirety, so I'd like to ask Pádraig and Pearse, do you endorse the document in its entirety? That's the first question. The second question I have again for Sinn Féin. Should you find yourself forming the next government, how can we be assured that you will implement the People's Document? And should it be necessary for you to form a coalition, how can we, the homeowners, be confident that the implementation of the document in full is a red line for you? And that you won't let it be watered down by the other parties that through their actions to date have clearly demonstrated they don't believe that we deserve 100% redress.
So the hands went up earlier on the floor, and if you look across this room, what people are looking for is 100% redress, end to end. No grants, no bureaucracy, the same treatment as would happen with people. And that's the core issue tonight. So yes, absolutely. In terms of this document, what we commit to, and I have worked with these campaigners for years, and so has Pearse, we commit to working with the campaigners to implementing this document. Yes, that's our answer. Yes, absolutely.
Can I just come in relation to that there? So we can go through the details in this here, and look, and I welcome the question because it teases it out. And I appreciate that there's a lot of politicians here and there's elections and all the rest. Okay, so I appreciate that, and everybody's looking for votes and whatnot. Our commitment is every single primary resident, we are going to provide 100% redress. Not only that, we're going to provide a PC sum. Not only that, we're going to make sure that you don't have to build a home yourself. There's going to be an end-to-end scheme, and there's going to be retrospection, and there's going to be support, and there's going to be bringing it up to modern standards. That's the commitment we have. We want to do an assessment in relation to all of the other properties that are then affected, commercial, community, all of that there, to see the type of scheme that we need in relation to that. We're very clear. You asked us in terms of if we get into government. I'm very clear with campaigners and everybody. We need as many people as possible pushing for this, 100%. We need independents, other political parties, even if their own party doesn't buy into it. Because I know for you and for the people that I work with every single day that this is way above politics. But I can tell you heart and heart, I genuinely believe that the only way we're going to get 100% redress if Sinn Féin forms the next government. That's it. I say to you, that is our commitment. It's the commitment of Mary Lou McDonald. She addressed the rally with Michael and others, and it's the commitment of me if I'm a minister. It's the commitment of our entire party. Mary T made a very valid point about the council, because people here, and of all shades of opinion, are good people, decent people, some people affected by themselves. The councillors elect the Seanad. In the next election, we want to be the party of government. We want to do that without Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael. Not because we hate them or don't like them. It's because we know that that will bring about the maximum change for you and for other people in this county. But we also need to make sure that we are able to pass legislation in the Seanad, and that's why the election of your councillors is crucially important. There is no point us publishing a piece of legislation that will provide every single one that had their hands up 100% redress, only to find out that the local councillors, whether they were Fine Gael or Fianna Fáil, have elected Fianna Fáil Seanaders, and we've seen what the Fianna Fáil senators do and how they stand up for you. We don't need that in the next Dáil. We need people who are backing 100% redress, and as I say to you, our commitment, and I can't tell you, we could face the next election and maybe we don't win seats. So I can't tell you what way the chips are going to lie. All I know is, on behalf of our party, we need to do our damnedest to be in power as the majority party the next time round, so that we can deliver for every single one of your families. That's the commitment of Mary Lou, it's the commitment of me, and it's the commitment of Pádraig and our entire team to you.
Okay, had you someone there, Kelly? Your side?
It might have been me.
All right.
Listen, this is going to overlap a little bit with your question, so the previous question. So apologies for when that occurs. And as well as that, I encourage anybody else that's got an overlapping question. It's clear we're going to have to overlap these questions to get the answers that we require. I have some concerns like everybody else in this room. Speaking to somebody who was working in Cassidy's Quarry in 2022, just before it shut, their estimation was 35,000 average domestic homes blocks were sold between 1990 and 2022. Now, in a Goldilocks scenario, where one of the political parties tonight who promised they were going to deliver the world, the 4 Ps, a phenomenal totem to aim for. In that Goldilocks situation, that one party gets in and they have an absolute carte blanche to do what they want, like you just talked about, Pearse, you don't mind me saying. In that situation, that would be wonderful. And we all would get to go home. It's great. And what I'd like to ask yourself specifically, and Deputy Pringle, TD Pringle, my apologies. And we really appreciate all the interaction that we've had as the Bank and Insurance Group with certain people in this room today who've been very, very forthcoming. What the metrics are with regard to how long it's going to take that to happen. In the Goldilocks situation that it happens correctly. And in the situation where it doesn't happen correctly and we end up back in this room in a couple of years' time again, fighting for a better version of what happens. What do we do in the meantime? Because everybody in this room here is trying to rebuild their homes. And they've already got a 90-10 and a 90-10 scheme-ish now to work with. And all you really need to work with this scheme right now is finance. So while we work towards a 4 Ps document, which is brilliant, and in a Goldilocks scenario is going to come along in about how long this gentleman tells us it's going to take to publish it and get it through. In the meantime, where are you going to get that extra 10%? And these politicians hold the ability to put pressure on the banks to get zero-cost bridging on the table for each and every one of you in the bank. And you know why I know that? Because we were having a meeting with everybody. By the way, the first person to respond was Mr. Pringle, Tomás Pringle. It was amazing. But we talked to all of the politicians in the Banking Insurance Focus Group in the last year. And what we did find out from that was when we were talking to Sinn Féin, they mentioned that there was a zero-cost bridging finance proposal on the table of the Department of Housing since September 2023 because of our efforts. To get everybody in this room, the zero-cost bridging, to get yourself in a position to access the 90-10 scheme. And clearly, nothing has happened to push that to touch. They've ignored it. That's what the government who's sitting in there right now have done for the last 6-7 months. They've ignored a zero-cost bridging. Think about that, folks. Finance, product, from the banks, all the banks, put it into the government and the government ignored it. So the two questions I have, finally, are, what's your timescale? Number two, in the meantime, what are you going to do to put pressure on the banks and put pressure on the government to make sure that they all finally work towards making the scheme that's there at the moment accessible while you get it together to create a new scheme for us?
Sorry. Yeah, thank you. And thanks for the question. And like I've said it, the Focus Redress Group, and we work quite close to them. I've done many meetings. I don't think I issued a press release in relation to it because it's them guys who are really doing the work, and we're just trying to assist them. But I've met with the central bank. and got the central bank to meet with the Focus Redress Group. I met with Insurance Ireland and says you need to meet with the Focus Redress Group. I've met with the governors of the central bank and said you need to do that. And I've got access, and in fairness, the Redress Focus Group has recognised my interventions privately in relation to ensuring that's access. I'm not on Highland Radio talking about 0%, which was Niall Blaney talking about it through his hat because it wasn't agreed at that time. I've also provided all of the private documents, the internal communication between the department and the banks to show that the banks have that on offer, as you say. A 0%, that 0% finance is on offer since last year. The banks, and I'm no friend, anybody knows me in terms of the banks, I give the banks a hard touch, but the banks are emailing constantly to the department talking about the mental health pressures, the pressures on families, and that they need a speedy decision to be able to provide 0% finance to the banks. Just next week, or the week after Easter, I'm meeting again with the central bank on these issues, following from a meeting that I did with the Redress Focus Group just last week. So in relation to, it's really, like, to me, this is only one part of what the banks need to do, which is that kind of that 0% finance to help in terms of getting your home started. There's a lot more that the banks need to do in terms of other finance that needs to be provided available, and I believe that the banks are getting away scot-free because they're getting their assets restored. So there's a lot more that needs to be done. But where's the blockage here at the minute? It's with the Department of Housing and with the Department of Finance. I've raised this with Michael McGrath and the Dáil. Look, we need to all have hope, and I understand that, but I need to be serious and genuine with you as well. This government isn't budging on this issue. Even the banks, like, it's not just one bank, every single bank, the three main banks have come together and said, we will do this, but the department won't give them the guarantee to actually go and do it. The Department of Finance are involved in it and all the rest. So what will we continue to do? We're going to continue to push. We're meeting the central bank in 2 weeks' time, and this is on the agenda. I've asked for a meeting with them, and I'm getting a private meeting. As I said, I don't raise this from the rooftops. I don't issue press releases because I know that this issue is far, far too serious. But I can tell people, because you've asked me the question now, that is what I'm doing. I do that on behalf of the party. We're very aware of what's happening there. And see if you got 0%, it will help a number of people. It doesn't actually fix the problem because you're only going to have a problem in stage 2, stage 3 when you're rebuilding the home. We have to make the best we can with this scheme at the minute and try and fix as much as possible. But this scheme is shite. And that's the reality. Most people, when we encourage people, and we did it in the Finance Committee, and again it was through myself and John McGuinness, asking people to come up and pour your hearts out, to open up and to try and gather the attention of policymakers and all the rest. That's appalling in this day and age that you have to do it. We all know, anybody who's got a wit about them, and the government know this as well, most people who are affected will never draw down this scheme. They know that. Because you can't draw it down, you won't have the money to draw it down. And it's done deliberately in relation to that there. So yes, we need to do all of this, and we're doing all of that in terms of the banks, but we need the scheme. And I'm not saying that this is I'm not saying this is fairy tale stuff. I'm saying the only way that I think that we can do this is actually changing the government. And I genuinely believe that. How long will it take? So the commitment we have, and see, when we got this document, Sinn Féin did 7 meetings on this, right? Because we didn't want to come here and say, yeah, we'll support this. We went through this with head of policy, our finance team, the whole lot, because if we're given a commitment, we aim to be in government the next time around, and we aim to deliver on the commitment that we give you here. So we want to make sure that we can deliver on it. What we're saying is we will make all of the finance available. We want to do 2 things in tandem: allow people to continue to build their own homes through self-build or contractors at the very start, but we want an end-to-end scheme. So that means putting it out for a framework, looking for a company to come in and actually deal with this at a large scale. See if they can do 1,000 houses, then the money will be there for them. See if they can do 1,500 houses, then that will be there for them as well. My commitment and the party's commitment is resources will not be the issue in relation to that.
Thank you. Thanks for the question too. And look, I've met with the redress group as well and put forward my ideas on what can be done in relation to it. And we've pushed, and I've raised it with the Minister for Environment and with every opportunity that I can. And I have used what's available to me in the Dáil as well to actually raise the issue through leaders' questions and stuff like that there. And the attitude of the Taoiseach and of the Taoiseach and that there's, what are you raising this for? This is sorted. That's their attitude, and that's the attitude of officialdom in Dublin, and that's what you get, like, and that's the attitude of Darragh O'Brien as well too, and we've been pushing them that the redress group that the banks would actually take it on board, and the banks are saying that they are willing to do it, but they want the Engineers Ireland to sign off on it. The department is saying that they're getting onto Engineers Ireland to sign off on it, but they're not having another meeting. And there hasn't been another meeting to actually come back with the views on that. So we're continuously pushing to make the best out of the crap scheme that is there at the moment. But that's all we can do at the minute. But I've given a guarantee, and it's there that if elected, I will be pushing, and I will be looking to join a government that will make a difference to the people, for the people of Ireland, and it will be based on this people's document that will be part of that. Timescale for that, look, we don't know when the next general election is going to be, and in reality I don't think that there's anything going to be done in the run up to the general election. But the general election has to happen by the general through the process. Well, from day one it would be on the priority to make happen. Now there may be opposition within the committee or within the officialdom. We'd have to deal with that. But I would say easily within a couple of months of a government being formed, a new scheme could be up and running, and that could be happening. It could be done if the will is there. That's the reality of the situation. And that's what happens. If you have the will, that things will happen. And that's what's been missing up to now, is a will to actually make things happen. And that's the reality.
Thanks, folks. Okay.
Hi. Am I audible? Excuse me. My name is Gar McDonnell. I have a home in Ramelton. It's what I'm going to do is maybe just say more of a statement than an actual question, but I think it's important, and I think it's pertinent to the feeling in the room this evening. My home is due for demolition in the next month. I've spent the last month moving my family out and setting up in a rental property. And I'm sick and tired of politicians telling me that they're going to do everything for us and not delivering anything. I have a list the length of my arm of politicians that have come to my door over the years and have asked for my vote. And on the other side, they've delivered nothing. Now, I'm going to keep this short. I'm a fit and healthy guy. I go to the gym. I run 10Ks for fun. But I'm on blood pressure medication for the rest of my life because of the stress this has caused me and my family. Members of my family are on mental health medication because of the stress this has caused us. So you're not going to understand what it feels until you stand in the shell of what was once your home, and you hold your wife and you hold your children as they sob uncontrollably. Because this isn't a scheme that works for anybody. I'm going to be out €100,000 to rebuild my home, and I don't have that. Does anybody else have that? No. So what I'm saying is, I'm on my knees here. We're all on our knees. We are struggling. So please give us something to believe in.
Well said. Thanks very much. That certainly wasn't easy.
Hello, my name's Charles Ward. I I've got a real simple question, okay? This scheme, my faith in the government is gone. I never had faith in them in the first place. I'm going to ask Pearse. I would plead with you now to make this your legacy. Get sites, get them cleared, get modular homes built. Let's get ready. If you get in next summer, no holidays. Let's get everything sorted. Let's get this moved. Seriously, if we have 100 people next year ready to go, we have nowhere to put them. We need to get modular homes for them. So that's why I'm saying to you now, let's plan ahead. Let's get it going. Let's get in touch with these companies. Let's start bulk buying our stuff so that we can get this started next summer. Because if we don't plan ahead, we're not going to get anywhere. That's what I'm saying. Make it your legacy.
No more recesses in the Dáil.
Okay, can you hear me? Okay. I'm so disappointed. I'm very upset. Can you hear me? Is this okay? I feel my blood pressure's probably gone. I was 75 years old yesterday. My husband is 88. He had a heart surgery 2 years ago. This has been very stressful. He had a new heart valve, and recently he had a hip replacement. And I've come here tonight and I felt elated in the first half. I really felt so thrilled. I felt at last they're going to do something. Until Michael Doherty has just spoken, and I'm so upset. Because my understanding is in the first half tonight, the Sinn Féin said that they would accept the whole document. That was it. They would buy into it and they would go right through everything. Now, it seems to me that you're not backing the document fully at all. Because you said at the beginning, equality with pay right. That includes holiday homes. And I noticed tonight that when Michael started, he has hands up all those who is their principal private residence. And I don't know what very high percentage, but I was waiting for him to ask, well, how many people have rental properties? How many people have holiday homes? How many people have commercial properties? He didn't ask that question. Did he? I didn't put my hand up for holiday homes. I didn't hear any question. But anyway, never mind that. The problem is, in the second half of tonight, Michael Doherty said that Sinn Féin would be committed to all those with principal private residences, all those who had their hands up earlier. Now, I didn't have my hand up, so I'm once again being excluded. And it says here, no exceptions, no exclusions that should exist in the new scheme. Eligibility is based on the property, not the owner. So you're saying, Sinn Féin, that you're not committed to fully accepting this document. Is that correct? Have I heard you right? Have I? Or are you giving two messages at the same time? Because I'm very upset about this. I came here tonight, I've listened, I've been excited, exhilarated. At last, we're going to get our house fixed. And now I feel you're only fixing those who has the principal private residences. It's not equal opportunities. What more can I say? Am I right?
So, thank you. There was two questions there. So, first of all, I agree. Well, Gary, first of all, thanks for sharing your story. And look, I know there's many stories like that, I'm sure, in the room. But thanks for sharing your story. And I know that you need hope, and that's what we're trying to do. But I'm not going to pretend that we're doing something that we're not either. I hope that people will appreciate that. When we've looked at this, that we've looked at it in detail, and we're going to be completely honest with you. It was said by Charles in relation to make this our legacy. I'll tell you something. See, whenever people don't elect me or kick me out or I retire or whatever it is, I want to be able to walk down the streets of my county with my head up high. I will not be able to do that unless we get this right. And I know that for myself, my family, that's personally, but more importantly, I know what this means for yourselves. Our commitment in relation to this, and I'll go into detail in relation to it as I have, is absolutely 100%. You talked about modular homes. That's exactly what we need. As part of the framework agreement, with a contractor coming in to build on scale, there needs to be modular homes as well that actually relocates people into homes as we're doing schemes. It won't be able to sort everybody out, but it needs to be part of the solution. Can we start doing that now? No, we can't. Like, look, have we been talking to builders and developers and and all that about these schemes? Absolutely. But can we start actually? We can't. We're in opposition. And I hear that point about, politicians and all the rest. Like, at the end of the day, and see, even with the council and all that, see if you're in government and you're committed to this. Tomás talked about political will, and you're saying that we want all family homes done. We want to, and you direct the council. A lot of the things with the council has to get the permission from the department or from government, and that's the problem. It's not a lack of willingness or whatever we think about the council. It is from the top down, unfortunately, that this operates. So, we've seen how officials have messed up the scheme. Officials have messed up the scheme because the politicians allowed them to mess up the scheme. And I make the commitment very clearly that what we're saying, we will deliver, and that's our commitment to you. In relation to the point that was made in relation to holiday homes, our commitment is that we will provide 100% redress, and I talked about all the PC sums and all the rest, in relation to your family home, in relation to your rental accommodation, in relation to commercial buildings, in relation to holiday homes. What we want to do is carry out an assessment immediately about the scale of them and then deliver a scheme. Nobody will be left behind, but we need to look at the scheme that was suited for them. So, for example, what we're talking about here isn't just going to happen in Donegal or Sligo or Mayo. There is defective apartments in Dublin, for example, so the same thing's going to apply there. There's other rules in terms of commercial properties, in terms of tax and all that, so it's a different type of scheme that you would have to apply. We're saying nobody will be left behind, but it may not be exactly the same as your private principal resident or your first buy-to-let, because we believe that that is quite unique. And I know some people may be upset with that there, but what we're saying is that we're not closing the door. We're actually saying that the door is completely open there. We want to find out exactly the size of it. I agree with Michael, what Michael says. I think that there's only a handful of properties that will be of that way. The last thing I'll say, because community buildings will fall into that. This week, myself and Mary Lou was in the county, and one of the things she wanted to do was visit an affected property with a defective block, and we took her to Refoe Childcare Group. It's closed its doors in June. They've nowhere to go. They fundraised for it. It overlooks Refoe Castle, built 500 years ago. That's still standing. The building that the fundraised 20 years ago is crumbling and will be collapsed. It just shows you the cancer that has taken part in terms of Donegal. We are absolutely committed, and we don't even believe you need another scheme to be rebuilding those community properties. So look, as I said, that is exactly what we're talking about. Your principal primary home, 100% redress, end-to-end scheme. If you wanted to build it yourself, that's fine. And there will be PC sums there as well, and it will be built to modern. The same thing in terms of buy-to-lets. And then alongside that, we want to get a handle on commercial properties and holiday homes. We actually believe that holiday homes could be a big solution for the accommodation issue. Because to answer the question that was put to me earlier on, how many are we going to build in year one? As many as we can. But where do we put people? Some of it will be modular homes. Some of it might be a case in terms of holiday homes and a scheme that would operate around that would get the holiday homes rebuilt. So that's the answer. That's an honest answer in relation to what we've come at. The easiest thing for me to say is I'm speaking on behalf of myself, and I back this 100%. I'm not going to play that game with you. This is a Sinn Féin commitment from top to bottom, and if we get into government, that is exactly what we'll deliver.
Where are we now, Angela Kelly?
Just one very quick question for Pearse, and it overlaps to some extent with the last question. But can I ask, does Sinn Féin 100% support this document? And does it commit itself to support this document 100%? And that's a very short, Short question.
I've just answered the point. In terms of holiday homes and commercial properties, we are not making that commitment right now. We're just not. We're going to. But let me. That's fine. That's okay. That's okay.
Thing with rentals is rentals are deteriorating the same way as family homes are. And the problem with it is people looking for accommodation. I mean, you don't think them rentals fall down as well? Yeah. I mean, we have people.
How many landlords end up landlords by accident? Accidental landlords.
Let me be clear, by the way. Your rental property, the person who has a rental property will be included 100%, full 100%, up to modern standards and PC sums. That commitment is there. What we want to get a handle on is how many people in the county have 10 rental properties and what scheme is available for them. And also, how would this affect the scheme in Dublin, where you might have a vulture fund that's worth billions of euro that owns 500 rental properties, and I don't want to make that commitment for them.
Well, it's either you're back in the document or you're not. I mean, it's either one or the other. I mean, put it this way, you boys are long enough in government and opposition now that you should know how many properties is affected. I mean, put it this way, you know, that's a heap of nonsense. Like, coming in here saying, I'm backing this here, and then suddenly, halfway through that conversation, you're saying, well, hold on a minute, you refer to family homes, you refer to one rental, and then you're vague in the rest of it. And that's bullshit.
I've got a question for the panel. First of all, fantastic work that that the committee's been doing. I've got two of my siblings that are got a Michael home, and I haven't actually got my home tested yet. But my question is, what are you going to do to actually get the workers here to actually build the construction? You know, what are you going to do to get the 5,000 people we need to build the houses here? You know, have you got any plans to actually get people to come and live in Donegal and build the houses, rebuild the houses? Because all I hear is talk. I don't hear anything positive about what you're going to do to actually make it happen.
I would like you to come, and I mean, you mentioned the one rental. You need to expand on what you're thinking on the rest of it. I mean, anybody that bought something that's defective, it wasn't their fault. Make it clear. I mean, that's the worst thing you possibly could have done tonight, is you've come on, I back this, and then you're backing out of it halfway through your conversation.
Pearse, I'm Liam Mulligan. I'll be the MD candidate in the Buncrana area, but I want to give you a chance to do more advertising and more promotion. I'm talking as someone who has over 30 years experience with Siemens in Dublin, which was large projects, a lot of public procurement, and there's a lot. That logistics question is a big question, but the question I'm going to go to in one core question is the Department of Finance. You said your finance committee had a look at this. We've been going at this for years. You have the money in your party to do the studies of the probabilities of the number of buildings out there that have to be fixed. In going into an election, if we are going to do this, we have to have the budget in every manifesto for this. What is this going to cost? You have studies. What is this going to cost? Over how many years is that total cost going to be placed? That is a key question. The Department of Finance, then policies and procedures in the public sector, which have been used to stop everything up to now, have to be changed. Pádraig, in another context, I've said this to you, I've made this quote, Paddy McGilligan, in the run-up to the Shannon scheme, was being attacked for not doing things the usual way. And Paddy McGilligan, who got the Shannon scheme, the greatest single infrastructure project that this country ever built, through, said, if we did things the usual ways, we'd be tied hand and foot and we'd never get anything done. And this comes down to all the politicians, all the councillors, all the TDs, all the ministers. We need, first and foremost, we need the money clear, ready to go, and then we need the commitment to change that. And that's the question I have to ask you, Pearse. Where's the money?
Okay, well, look, as I mentioned earlier on, in terms of what we would like to see, what we would do is we would have an end-to-end scheme run by the housing agency, and there would be a framework agreement. So what does that mean? It means you put it out there, you look for large builders to come in. There may be small builders as well as part of that there to build houses, and you give them hundreds of houses to build. So that's how it works. Where do you get the workers in relation to that? When we've met with the Construction Federation industry, they tell us that won't be an issue. There is also, as I'm sure you know, Peter, there's a downturn in relation to commercial property, which is freeing up some skilled workers that can help in terms of all of this as well. So workforce is always a challenge everywhere, but we believe that through a framework agreement, you're looking at some of the large companies coming in here to build on scale, along with local builders here as well that will be building to get that type of supply up. In terms of where the money comes from, like, that's the kind of questions that RTE would ask me when they say that this can't be done. With respect, and the money is there. We can find obstacles why this shouldn't happen, whether it's staff or whatever, or this has to happen. The surpluses that we're going to have the year after next is 20 billion. The surplus that we have this year is 12 billion. That's money that the department is actually saying, well, what will we do with it? How will we put away for a rainy day when houses here are actually dealing with the storm day in, day out? That is where that money should be invested, to build the homes, to rebuild the homes, to rebuild the communities as fast as possible. Look, people challenge me for being dishonest or whatever. That's fine, and I accept all political charge. I stand for elections. I'm being completely and utterly honest here with people. In terms of, and I say this again, if you're in this room and your principal private residence, your family home is affected, the commitment to us is 100% redress. End-to-end scheme, if that's the way you want it. That means that you don't have to go and find the contractor or the money yourself to get started. PC sums for things like flooring, to make sure as well that there's support there through that process in terms of community support and the hubs, and that it's built to modern standards. That's the commitment we have. If you've got a rental property, it is the same commitment. And if you've got other types of property, what we're saying is you're going to be included as well, but we want to do an assessment in relation to the size and scale of that right across the island to actually look at what type of scheme needs to be developed in relation to that. That's where we're at the minute, and my commitment is to work with your campaign group. I've said it to the campaign group. They will keep us on their toes as well as they'll keep everybody else on their toes. Now, I can come in and tell you something else and then say, oh, I couldn't get it through the party or anything like that. That isn't what I've done. This is an end-to-end commitment from Sinn Féin. And I know that people want hope here. And there is no guarantee that we're going to lead the next government. But it's my job and Pádraig's job to make sure that that happens. And if that does happen, I'm telling you something now. If you voted for me and we don't deliver on 100% redress, then we don't deserve your vote again. That's what I'm saying to you. We haven't had a chance in relation to this. Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael have had their chance. Scheme 1, Scheme 2, why are you here today? Because it's not working. So look, I understand that there's more that can be done, but I'm being brutally honest with people here, and I prioritise the family home. I do prioritise the family home, and that's where it is, but I am not shutting the door on any of this. Our party is not shutting the door on anything, whether it's holiday homes or commercial, but we need to get a size of what the scale is and then see what the best fit for that scheme is. And it may be the same. It may be the same, and we'll work with your committee to do that. So that's where we're at, and that's brutally honest. And if people, that's just all I can do, because there's no point, as I said, me coming in here and telling you something and feeling that I'm the great guy walking out the door when it's not what we are saying.
Thanks, Pearse.
Pearse, I'm not a big Sinn Féin supporter, but I have to say that the councillors here have been more than helpful to what my son and myself are trying to achieve. My son worked and got a company in England through the production of modular houses in southeast England. In fact, one of the houses that he designed and was manufactured over there, was featured on Grand Designs in January of last year. Now, we have been working for a year on bringing that business over here. We're negotiating for the Fruit of a Loom building, and we think we have that in the bag. In fact, so much so that the people who own it want to work with us. Now, I would like the people here to look up www.tchakmodular. I hope you all can speak Irish. I did it for 3 years, and that's probably 2 words that I know. Now, I have to say that my singing friend over there, Albert, has been very helpful. Gerry, further over, Terry, further over, has been very helpful. The man sitting beside you has been really helpful. And we have been trying to push from our end, because my son's an architect, qualified in the UK. He has just 3 weeks ago been accepted into the Royal Irish Architecture, the Institute of Architecture, Royal in Dublin. So anyway, I want you to look that up. Now, the big problem that we have is we can manufacture 10 houses per month once we get started. If we get a machine costing 4 million, we can manufacture 100 houses per year, 1,000 houses per year. And we can employ 500 people within 2 years in Buncrana. Now, I have set up 2 businesses before in Derry that have ended up as that I was able to sell to American companies very successfully. And one of the things is that we really do.
Sorry, can I just ask you to wrap up? We have a lot of people leaving now at this point, so I take your point, and I think it's very valid. We do need an ability to help ourselves here, use the buildings, use the people who's prepared to put money to it, and make it happen. Absolutely.
Just have time
and I
for
think
one
we'll take
more
the details there.
Sorry,
Okay.
I just have the mic over here, and I have a question for all 4 of you sitting up there, including Joe McHugh. I did live in a Michael home. Fortunately now I have since been moved out of the house. But I was in a rental accommodation, and that's why I hadn't intended to say anything tonight. But when I hear you talked about looking after the primary home first, it may have been a rental accommodation, but it was my primary home at the end of the day. And I had to take my fight to the Dáil to get rehoused, and I remember you invited me down, Tomás, and I met with you, Pádraig, as well. I had a daughter who was in a wheelchair. She still is in a wheelchair. And I met you that night, Joy. She's so physically disabled, she had to get carried up and down the stairs because we couldn't put a stair lift in for fear that our wall would fall on top of the neighbour. She had to get lifted in and out of a bath. Now, when I originally started this fight, do you know what I was told? This is the inhumanity these people are dealing with. I was told I should video myself carrying my child up and down the stairs because it would have more of an effect. This was a wee girl who was turning 18 years of age. I had to put myself out there. I got called a sponger, a money grabber. I'm a full-time carer with 2 disabled children. I have 4 children and 2 are disabled. And I got, oh, she just wants a free house. But I did that because I had to for the safety of my children, right? My parents are still in that house. It has Micah. My sister is living in a primary rented accommodation that has Micah. This is their homes. It may belong to somebody else, and it might belong to somebody who has 1 house, or 2 houses, or 5 houses, or 10 houses. But where are they supposed to go? So what I'm trying to say to you is I understand what you're saying. We have to look at the bigger picture here, and we have to support primary houses first. But these are people's primary homes. My sister's lived in the same house for 8 years, 9 years. And I'm telling you, it's coming down with Micah. My parents are well late into their 60s. My father is a retired member of the service of this country. He wore the uniform of this country, and he's not entitled to any help because he receives a pension for serving his country. So he can't, he was wounded in service, so he can't get a mortgage because he was wounded in service and he has a wounded in service pension, but he can't get in the council list because his wounded in service pension is too much. And he's living in a Micah house. So I understand where you're coming from. I'm not naive or anything else. I understand that the numbers have to add up, but people should not have to be publicising their stories. People should not have to be videoing the indignities that they're living in order to be heard. And it's an absolute disgrace. And anybody going into government shouldn't be asking it.
Okay. Thank you for that as well. There was one last thing that I wanted to do, and I wanted Joe to come up here and talk. Joe's been extremely instrumental, as you all know, along with others, in the whole EU end of things. And we did get, a position from the EU there very recent in the last couple of days, and I don't think it's particularly clear. So I've asked Joe to do a bogman's lingo version of it that would take 5 minutes here. Okay?
Testing. He asked me this morning, guys. Thanks, Michael. Before I go into that, guys, just thank you very much, and Michael, particularly for you, just for bringing redress focus groups, 100% redress, MAG, and I know there's work going on behind the scenes in terms of the other county action groups together. I think it's fantastic to see everybody pulling behind the same horse, if you like, so well done. Right, the EU, I'll try and make this quick, guys. I was trying to think how I would frame it, so context first, just in terms of how I got involved, where we're at today, and what we hope is going to happen next. So context, actually all of you guys in this room, certainly the majority of you, any of you that were in Dublin in October 2021, when Paddy got us all down to the Custom House, were actually a trigger, if you like, in terms of the EU thread, because it prompted MEP Luke Ming Flanagan to approach Dr. Eileen Doherty and Miss Anne Owens, who was there earlier, but I think she's gone. He approached them and he just said to them, I want to help. And within 2 months, myself and Anne were presenting to the Petitions Committee within the EU Parliament. We got unanimous support. It was a fantastic experience listening to foreign nationals, non-Irish MEPs, speaking in their own native language about this crisis. We got unanimous support, and through a lot of effort again from MEP Luke Ming Flanagan and his team, managing, if you like, the political corridors of the EU Parliament, we managed to get the mission last year. And that was not a guarantee, and hugely important relative to what we're trying to do next, which ultimately is to influence the EU Commission to get involved and act against the Irish government relative to what they're doing to each and every one of us today. Now, what you'll have heard over the last couple of weeks is the EU Parliament have published the report. It has been adopted now, so accepted within the EU Parliament, and it has been sent to national bodies within Ireland, lead politicians, and also, and very importantly, the EU Commission. Now, to explain why this is a very critical juncture, the EU Parliament report is not legally binding, or Irish politicians do not have to read it, and they don't have to do anything as a result of it. I would suggest to their peril, but nonetheless they do not have to do anything. It's not legally binding in any way in terms of putting any pressure on the Irish government. However, that's not its value. I've submitted a complaint directly to the EU Commission earlier this year. David Coleman of Coleman Legal in Dublin submitted a complaint direct to the EU Commission towards the latter half of last year. Now, those two complaints, mine as a homeowner, can justifiably be deemed to be biased. David Coleman's complaint, again, can justifiably be deemed to be biased because he's representing a lot of us here today. The EU Parliament report cannot be deemed to be biased. It is an objective, non-national opinion based on what they seen themselves when they visited Donegal late last year. And that report, along with two complaints, which are very, very comprehensive, are landing with the EU Commission within the same time frame. So that's where we're at today. What we're hoping for next is to engage the EU Commission in an exercise to overturn a few things that are happening today. One, or let me go with primary first. So the primary one is market surveillance within the country. So making sure that our quarries are tested regularly through unannounced visits, and that appropriate action is taken should the products not meet EU regulation standard. The second one, and I'm going to be honest with you, I was a bit surprised in terms of how much the EU Parliament report leaned into this, because I didn't think we'd get as big a bite. But certainly secondary and following their mission and the report, there seems to be an appetite within the EU to influence the Irish government relative to the parameters of the scheme. So everything we'll be talking about tonight. The EU Commission themselves put a 1 year, 12-month window on their next step. So that was triggered from the complaint that I've submitted myself in early March. So about 1 year from today, there will be what is a political engagement with the Irish government, should they decide to engage. I haven't had that confirmation yet, with the Irish government, which will initially be political, right? So Pearse, Pádraig, if you're fortunate enough to be in the next government, they might be ringing you. But the intent there as a political game is to apply political pressure, and Lisa joined me when we met the Commission last year, and what they've said to us is, in their experience, that political engagement is generally enough to effect change within the member state. Now, if they don't get what they feel is an adequate response from the member state, in this case Ireland, they can then engage legislative action through the European Court of Justice. So that's where we're at, guys. I'll wrap it up. So roughly speaking, I would be expecting within the next 6 to 12 months that we'll be starting to get some kind of feedback from the Commission relative to what their next steps are. Thank you.
Thanks a million, Joe Morgan. Thank you. Okay, so we're in the wrap-up stages at this point, and but there are a few things I just want to say. First of all, I didn't thank the media, and we do have media here. We've Grant March down here who does Backstory.ie, tremendous work all the time. We've Emma over here. We have Highland Radio over here with Michaela and the team. We had TG Cahar down there with Alva. Interestingly, I did try to get RTE here, and I'm wondering what else is going on in the Northwest that's bigger than 1,000 people here tonight. But RTE did seem to think that they had bigger fish to fry somewhere else. You'd wonder times. It's back to where we were down, and it was referenced earlier when we were down in Dublin on the 8th of October with about 25,000 people, and we came 5th in the bulletins at the 6 o'clock news. Number 3 was 200 farmers in Athlone that had the tractors out. Number 1 was a bank that closed in some wee village down the west of the country. So we're not getting any favours there, but we've our own media. And you know, I'm just looking at the Twitter storm that's up and running again. That was massive back in the day, a couple of years back. And obviously this man here got the team all pulled together, and they were working hard. But interesting, on the day that Leo Varadkar's news was being dispatched on the media, the Twitter storm here, Roisin got the thing started again, ended up 3rd and 4th place. So, you know, don't underestimate our own abilities there either. The other thing I would say as well, you know, I suppose you're down into, you know, we hear lots of stuff tonight, and I understand the scepticism. Believe me, there's nobody more sceptical than ourselves at this stage in what we try to do. But we still need hope, and we still need to believe that there is a brighter day ahead. There are some people, I have a couple of people that I know, and again, this is the trickle part, by design, by our government, but they're in their new house, you know, and yes, they're out money, and they were able to make that happen through whatever way they were able to make it happen. But you know, they should be retrospectively then looked after when the time comes when we get this people's document over the line, right? And that's only about right. And in fairness, that's what I'm hearing is the commitment. So that's massive. But what my main point is that life does go on, and life does improve massively for these people. There's not enough of them, and that's our biggest problem at the minute. But what I would say simply is this, you know, do not give up the fight this year. Of all years it matters, it's this year. So have we got everybody on the bus here? Perfect. You know, and just lastly, then I want to thank the Gateway Hotel. To be honest, we were as nervous as hell when we booked this because we said this is massive, build it and they will come. But you know, even if we had had the crowd that we had in the Green sitting in here, it still would have looked like a small crowd. And we needed the visual impacts that we got tonight. So fair play to you for coming out in your droves. I just want to say a couple of things about where this next steps are. Right, the next steps for us, we're going to work with all the parties and all the independents that are pro the People's Document. We're going to do that. And we'll work with them at a Donegal level and at a national level. That's our commitment. And we've already started that ball rolling. We will work to build an oven-ready legislation that delivers on the People's Document ahead of the elections. If we get the commitment here that's needed, that they'll work with us. They'll not keep it at arm's length the way it was done with the previous government. That allowed the departments to keep it at arm's length. But you know, we want this to be oven ready. We can't afford a new government in 8 or 9 or 10 months' time then to start looking to see what they're going to start to put together for another 12 months' time. We don't have that time. There is nothing that needs to be known much more than what we already know. There are things around the scale, and I completely accept that, and that's fair enough, and any business would do the same thing, and the country's still a business, you know, so they're going to have to look at that and see what costs what and so on. But the bottom line is that work needs to start now, not whenever you have a new government or you have another election. So we will be working and pushing hard with that, and the guys will know to expect nothing less from us in that regard. We will still want to work to ease the pressures on homeowners with the current schemes. You know, these are the deliberate constraints that are put in, and you know, there's nobody walking away from that. I'm less involved in that now, but you have, you know, a man here that's keeping them on their toes with these videos, and Lisa beside him that keeps everything going. It's massive what goes on there. With the redress focus groups, again, that pulled a pile of people around sensible issues that needed addressed. And, you know, Roisin Gallagher took that on there, so that's not going away either, okay? And then we have Lisa Hone over here and Tricia as well, who's the vice chair. And again, Mike Action Group has been the recognised brand over the years. There's no doubt about that. Anne's away now, but, you know, kitchen table stuff, you know, probably what, the guts of 14 years ago now at this stage. And that fight continues. And we may say we have a crap scheme, and we have a crap scheme, but we would have had no scheme without the work of the founders, and that needs to be recognised. And just the last point, did I thank the Gateway? I did? I did, thanks. The last point then is just we will continue to drive this campaign forward with gusto in this election year. And our goal, absolutely, is to deliver that complete People's Document. Thanks very much, everybody.
Can we have a big round of applause for Michael Doherty as well? Great to have you back, Michael.